When you think of the Cold War's most iconic fighter jets, the F-4 Phantom II stands tall, both literally and figuratively. Yet, its story begins with failure, financial desperation, and a company on the brink of collapse. By the time it reached frontline squadrons, however, it had transformed into one of the most versatile and widely used fighters in history. McDonnell's rocky road to relevance. The 1950s were not kind to the McDonnell Aircraft Corporation. Their twin-engine Banshee fighter, once promising, saw its market evaporate with the end of the Korean War. Attempting to replace it, McDonnell poured enormous sums into developing the Demon, a sleek single-engine jet that ultimately flopped. Worse still, rival Vought scooped up the Navy contract that McDonnell had desperately chased. McDonnell's real problem was speed. Even when their prototypes broke the sound barrier in 1953, the U.S. Navy was unimpressed. For years, the company tried, and failed, to deliver an aircraft that matched the Navy's shifting demands. By the late 1950s, McDonnell was in danger of being left behind by competitors. That changed in 1958, when the company unveiled something bold, a twin-engine, supersonic, all-weather long-range fighter. Originally nicknamed Satan, perhaps reflecting its troubled birth, it was soon rebranded after McDonnell's first success, the Phantom. What followed would cement its place in aviation history, built for a new era of air combat. The Phantom wasn't designed for romanticized dogfights of World War II lore. Instead, it embraced cutting-edge radar and missile technology intended to strike from beyond visual range. This required a radical rethink of cockpit workload. Unlike traditional fighters, the F-4 carried a crew of two, a pilot and a radar intercept officer, whose extra set of eyes and instruments gave the jet a distinct edge. For Navy aviators, this partnership was invaluable. One veteran described it best: "In combat, you've got two pairs of eyes." That makes all the difference when you're 20 miles out and trying to decide if the dot on your radar is a friend or foe. A flying brick that could carry a war. At first glance, the Phantom wasn't pretty. Critics nicknamed it a flying brick for its chunky frame and awkward proportions. Yet its very bulk gave it remarkable versatility. With 9 external pylons and a payload capacity of nearly 16,000 pounds, it could carry almost as much as an entire F-86 Sabre, the U.S. Air Force's pride just a decade earlier. This was more than just a fighter. It was a Swiss Army knife of the skies. It could fight other jets, bomb ground targets, launch rockets, or carry early guided missiles. The only glaring omission? No internal gun. That shortcoming would later haunt Phantom pilots in close quarters combat. Strange wings, big engines, blistering speed. One of the Phantom's most recognizable features was its wing design. Mounted low on the fuselage and swept at 45 degrees, they initially caused instability. Rather than redesign the entire structure, engineers tilted the wingtips upward and added a dog-tooth notch on the leading edge, which improved control at high angles of attack. Under the hood, twin General Electric J-79 turbojets gave the Phantom serious muscle. Despite weighing over 27 tons fully loaded, the aircraft could scream past Mach 2. Pilots vividly recall the sheer force of acceleration. One described his first afterburner run as a literal kick in the backside. Another recalled testing the limits at sea level, only to return and find the paint scorched clean off the leading edges from the heat. Carrier-borne and battle-proven. Built for carrier operations, the Phantom featured an arrestor hook for short landings on pitching decks. That same hook played a starring role in one of the most legendary rescue stories of the Vietnam War. In 1967, pilot Bob Pardo used his Phantom's nose to push his wingman's crippled jet by its tailhook for nearly 90 miles, allowing the crew to eject safely over friendly territory. Such feats highlighted the Phantom's ruggedness. Its titanium-heavy fuselage and close-mounted engines gave it endurance and toughness, traits that endeared it to those who flew it. From Navy darling to Air Force workhorse, the Phantom first entered U.S. Navy service in 1960. But in a push for standardization, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara insisted the Air Force adopt it too. By 1963, the F-4 was serving both branches, albeit with different designations, the Navy's F-4B and the Air Force's F-4C. Its baptism of fire came in Vietnam, where it was thrust into roles ranging from air superiority to bombing runs. Vietnam, trial by fire. Early in the war, U.S. strategy hinged on overwhelming air power. The Phantom spearheaded Operation Rolling Thunder, a massive bombing campaign meant to cripple North Vietnam. But American pilots quickly discovered their supposed technological advantage came with caveats. Surface-to-air missiles supplied by the Soviets wreaked havoc on Phantom formations. Dodging them required brutal last-second maneuvers, sometimes successful, often not. In response, the U.S. created Wild Weasel squadrons, Phantom units modified to hunt and destroy surface-to-air missile sites. Their missions were so dangerous their unofficial motto became, "You've got to be shitting me?" When facing enemy aircraft, the Phantom's limitations became clear. The small, agile MiG-21 could easily outturn the lumbering American jet. Worse, the Phantom's smoke-belching engines betrayed its position, and its unreliable radar missiles often failed to lock on. Without a gun, close-range dogfights were a nightmare. Only later versions like the F-4E finally added an internal cannon. Despite this, Phantoms achieved hundreds of kills and became the backbone of U.S. air operations. Navy squadrons like VF-74 aboard USS America flew punishing missions during Linebacker 1 and 2 in 1972. Remarkably, VF-74 completed its tour without losing a single aircraft to enemy action, a testament to the Phantom's resilience and its crew's skill. A British twist. Ironically, Britain initially mocked the Phantom's ungainly looks. Yet, after canceling its ambitious TSR-2 program, the UK had little choice but to buy the American fighter. Specially modified FGR.1 and FGR.2. Phantoms entered Royal Navy and Royal Air Force service in the late 1960s. British aviators soon grew fond of the jet. One pilot affectionately recalled, "I could make that thing dance." British Phantoms later deployed to the Falklands, providing air defense in the tense years after the 1982 conflict. Global phenomenon. Over its production run, more than 5,000 Phantoms rolled off the line, making it the most produced American supersonic fighter in history. At the height of the Cold War, Phantoms were flying in the colors of Germany, Japan, Australia, Egypt, Turkey, and more. The aircraft's longevity is astonishing. In 2014, a Turkish Phantom reportedly carried out an airstrike against ISIS militants in Iraq, more than half a century after its debut. Even today, a handful remain in limited service, making the Phantom nearly 70 years old and still flying. Legacy of the Phantom. Was the Phantom perfect? Not even close. It was too big, too smoky, and initially lacked a gun, unforgivable flaws for a dogfighter. Yet its versatility, toughness, and raw power kept it relevant long after sleeker jets like the F-15 and F-16 entered service. The Phantom proved that an aircraft didn't need to be beautiful to be iconic. It needed to be adaptable, survivable, and trusted by those who flew it. From Vietnam's jungles to the icy decks of British carriers, the Phantom delivered again and again. Today, aviation enthusiasts celebrate the F-4 as a Cold War workhorse and a symbol of technological daring. It bridged the gap between the brute force era of early jets and the sophisticated electronics-heavy fighters of today. When one hears the Phantom's thunderous roar, a sound that has terrified foes and thrilled spotters for decades, it's clear why this flying brick became a legend. And that's the incredible story of the F-4 Phantom II. An aircraft that went from nearly bankrupting its maker to becoming one of the most iconic jets in aviation history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Cold War aviation and want to see more stories like this, don't forget to hit the like and make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep your eyes on the skies.